Ever feel like you're on one of those journeys, like self-discovery and all that, but could really use like a map or some kind of guide?
And wouldn't it be fascinating if that guide was a journal?
Well, that's what we're diving into today.
We are. We're taking excerpts from an interview with the author of Restored Grace, A Journey of Faith and Redemption.
Right, like getting a peek into someone's personal transformation as it's, happening.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little. This isn't just any journal. The author refers to it as the journal with a capital J.
It became their safe space, a confidant.
Exactly. Somewhere they could work through a really difficult relationship and kind of reconnect with their faith.
Yeah, and those pages, that's really the heart of this deep dive. The author was involved with a non-Christian partner, and that created a lot of internal conflict given their faith.
Right, like trying to reconcile your head and your heart, those core beliefs. The author even talks about this intense jealousy and feeling distant from God. And this whole thing about unequal relationships that they explore in their ebook that actually came from this period in their life. But here's the interesting part, at least initially, they don't dive into therapy or self-help books or anything.
It's true. They don't look for those external answers right away.
Right. Instead, they go inward, back to their faith, scripture, and prayer.
And that's where the journal becomes so important.
Like their own personal hotline to their faith. What I find fascinating is how their relationship with the journal and with their faith changes as the relationship drama unfolds.
Oh, absolutely.
At first, it's all about the jealousy. They're pouring out their emotions onto the page.
Raw, real.
You can practically feel the turmoil in those early entries.
Right, but then there's a shift as they get deeper into scripture, into prayer, which, by the way, they also detail in the journal. Their writing takes on this whole new depth.
It becomes more reflective.
More than that, they start connecting their own experiences to stories from the Bible.
Like they're looking for guidance, for answers.
Exactly, and they find some pretty powerful parallels.
One that really struck me was the story of Samson. Now, full disclosure, my biblical knowledge is a little rusty, but...
Oh, you don't have to be a biblical scholar to appreciate this. Basically, Samson, he's this super strong leader, but his weakness, relationships, women who don't share his faith. It's a cautionary tale.
And the author is seeing this play out in their own life.
Yeah, like a mirror.
It's like that aha moment. Suddenly, it's not just feelings on a page. They're analyzing their situation through this whole new lens.
Right.
And then they come across another biblical story, and this one really threw me for a loop. Ohola and Oholiba. I'll be honest, never heard of them.
Yeah, it's a little less well-known, but it fits perfectly here.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ohola and Oholiba, they were sisters, and essentially they strayed from their faith. They were chasing empty pleasures, forming alliances that went against what they believed in.
So they represent that idea of spiritual infidelity.
Exactly. And the author connects that to their own situation, to prioritizing a relationship that just didn't line up with their values.
Wow, okay. So we've got these raw journal entries, the author wrestling with jealousy, questioning their choices, and then, bam, these biblical stories hit them. Makes you wonder, how did this change their relationship? Did they try to, change their partner, or what happened next?
Well, that's where prayer comes in. The author talks about praying for clarity, for guidance on how to deal with this whole mess. And remember, it's all right there in the journal.
We're getting this front row seat to their internal struggle.
In real time.
So raw and vulnerable. Does it work? I mean, do they get the clarity they're asking for?
You know what they say. Be careful what you pray for. The author's partner, well, they end up showing their true colors. It's like their gut feeling that something wasn't right. It was confirmed.
They find out something.
They discover a lie, a betrayal. And you can practically feel their world shattering as you read these entries.
But there's also this sense of, relief.
For sure. Like a weight's been lifted.
Right. It's a painful truth, but it's still the truth.
And it's through that pain that the author finds this incredible freedom.
Like they were right to question, to pray, to trust their instincts.
Exactly.
It reminds you that sometimes those answers, they find us when we least expect it. Okay, but here's what gets me about this whole story. Years later, the journal is still important. It's more than just a diary from the past, it's a guide. The author talks about this time they're on a bus ride years after the breakup, and they realize they're slipping back into old habits, old thought patterns.
Like they're in danger of repeating the same mistakes.
Yeah, doubting themselves and their journey. But then they remember the journal.
Like a lifeline.
It's not like they whip it out right there on the bus and start rereading the whole thing. It's more like just the memory of it.
Yeah.
Knowing those words and that journey are right there. It's grounding. It reminds them of how far they have come.
Exactly. And that's what's so amazing. It shows just how powerful journaling can be when you really go deep into yourself and your experiences.
It's not just about processing the past.
It's about giving yourself the tools you need to face the future.
And it makes you wonder what happens next. Because the excerpts in this interview, it's only like the first half of the journal.
Right. What about the rest of the story?
It's a total cliffhanger.
Right.
The author mentions finding a partner who shares their faith, someone they can build a life with, a life that really reflects their values. They even talk about moving abroad. A whole new chapter.
Wow. Can you imagine the stories in those later entries?
All that growth, the challenges, the evolution of their faith.
It makes you think about your own journey.
Right.
What would your journal look like?
I would be in it.
Exactly. What moments of clarity,
Yeah.
what breakthroughs, what challenges made you who you are?
It's a good reminder that we all have our own stories to tell, our own journeys of faith and self-discovery.
Maybe there's a journal out there just waiting for you.
With your name on it, waiting to be filled, that's something to think about. Until next time on The Deep Dive, keep exploring.